Also, Jeff, Shaden Sharp, he's a guy that when we did our mock draft was available at 7. And there are a lot of conversations and a lot of mock drafts where Shaden Sharp is available as far as 7. Is there a world, Jeff, where the Pistons go Keegan Murray at 5 and Shaden Sharp at 7? And is that your ultimate dream draft scenario?
Yes and yes. No.
What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Tuesday, June 14th. I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Jeff Iafrate. Jeff, we are less than 10 days away from the NBA draft, man. It's so hype. It's draft time, baby.
It's the time where we find out if people were wrong or if they were right.
Oh, yeah. We find out. We like all of this analysis we've been doing, all of these theories and philosophies and trails that we've been on. All of it will come to pass, and we will know for certain what exactly is going to be happening and ultimately where players are going to be ending up. And Jeff, there's been this other question that's been on our minds for a long time. And it is, will Troy Weaver double dip in the first round? Will Troy Weaver grab that dangling number 7 pick from the Portland Trailblazers? Could they possibly go for a number 4 pick from the Sacramento Kings? Could they even go number 14 with whoever has, because that's another one that's on our board as well. So, Jeff, there's a lot of different directions that we could go. But my question to you is, which guys are you looking at if we get the 7th pick? Are you a fan of having more than one first round pick this draft? And what are some names that these Pistons fans really should know?
So for me, it depends on who they take at 5. If they take Keegan Murray at 5, I'm a Shaden Sharp guy. Go and get Shaden Sharp. But if we're looking at the comparison, because it's Bennedict Mathurin, you hear a lot of Jalen Duren, a lot of people talking about Jalen Duren as well. I think if you, depending, let's say we could do 2 different scenarios. Let's say they take Keegan Murray at 5. I think Bennedict Mathurin's the pick. I think that's it. We're just talking at 7. Now, if you're at 14 or if they get 4, which if they get 4, by the way, they have to give up 5. So I don't know. It would be a tough one there. But let's say they do get, 7. You take Bennedict Mathurin. You get Keegan Murray and Bennedict Mathurin. Realistically, I mean, for me, Shaden Sharp, but Troy Weaver, it sounds like it'd be Bennedict Mathurin. But if they take Jaden Ivey, then that makes it interesting. For me, I don't think it matters. I would still take Bennedict Mathurin, even if you have Jaden Ivey, just because
I agree.
You get more shooting, you get more versatility. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's so positionless now in the NBA.
I mean, let's just talk about it, man. First of all, for the people that have talked about how we don't mention Bennedict Mathurin enough, let's be honest, man. Bennedict Mathurin's awesome. He's a guy that if he comes in day one, you know that he's going to defend at a high level. You know that he can shoot consistently. And if he could develop to a 40% 3-point shooter in the NBA, that's something that's going to be of high value for a long time. He might not be a star guard, and he might not have that star scoring ability like Jaden Ivey does to create his own shot. And that's why maybe he's not being mocked at 5 like these other guys are. However, the things that he can do and the value that he can add to a team that's contending. I mean, you look at the Boston Celtics, how many guys are like Bennedict Mathurin on that roster? It's too many to count, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And it reminds me a lot, if you look back when they took Killian Hayes, they took a guy who they saw they can, as a project, they can develop. And then later in the draft, they took Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, 2 guys more for sure in their eyes. So if you do take Bennedict Mathurin at 7, sounds a whole lot better. And it sounds better when you already have your selection at 5. So regardless, though, Bennedict Mathurin would be my choice if they go Keegan or Jaden Ivey. I think that'd be great. But I just want to talk about Jalen Duren for a second, because I get why everyone's enamored with him. I would love, listen, I've been clamoring for 7-footers who can block shots, catch lobs, all that stuff. But with Jalen Duren, he's not even my favorite center in the draft. And I'm not saying he's not the best. Obviously, Chet Holmgren's the best, but I'm not saying he's not up there. I love Mark Williams a lot. That would be a guy that if you fall to 14, somewhere in the teens, late, maybe even towards the 20s, hopefully Mark Williams is there. That's a center I like, a guy who is working on his shot, able to stretch the floor. With Jalen Duren, most of his shots were off dunks and layups, 2 feet from the basket. Not even just that, he can't shoot free throws very well. And he turned the ball over. You believe this or not? He turned the ball over a whole turnover more than Bennedict Mathurin.
Mm-hmm.
He's averaging 2.2 turnovers compared to Benedict's like 1.5, whatever it is. So with Jalen Duren, as a guy who doesn't pass, is a playmaker for others like a Chet Holmgren, he turns the ball over consistently. So there's a lot more things Jalen needs to work on for me and where the NBA is going. I like all 5 guys. You see the Celtics, you just brought them up. Robert Williams, he can't, shoot, but my God, he brings energy. And he could do a lot of other things as
absolutely.
well. So if Jalen Duren could turn into that, I can see why Troy would love him. You bring in an anchor and all that stuff. He won't. But again, what role do you see Jalen Duren? Is he your future starting center? That's why we love DeAndre Ayton, because you're getting a finished product already. Exactly. You're getting a guy who has all the tools already, not a project like Jalen Duren. So for me, Sean, if you either take Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, give me Bennedict Mathurin.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, too, I just think the other thing that's working against Jalen Duren being selected by the Detroit Pistons is not only do you bring up DeAndre Ayton, but it's not just him. It's guys like Mitchell Robinson as well. It's the litany of other big men that are available in this free agency class if the Pistons ultimately decide or ultimately fall and don't get Ayton in those sweepstakes. So it's just one of those things where Detroit has other options that might be more ready to go right now and more polished as players than Jalen Duren. Not saying that Jalen Duren can't be a really good player, because I can see him having a Robert Williams type impact for a team where he's changing things, because he does have explosive defensive impact. He does have great rim protecting ability. I mean, there's times you see Jalen Duren and he's just outmatching and he's taking the paint almost out of the game entirely.
Oh yeah.
So there's things about him where it's tantalizing, and as a defensive big, just focusing on that, great prospect. But like you said, offensively, a lot of it's just lobs. A lot of it's just his height. It's not just from him being able to do much as an actual offensive player, which, with DeAndre Ayton, so it will about Ayton and there's the video game reports, which, I don't really like to, analyze that. We don't know what's going on in that locker room.
Everybody plays video games. News alert.
Also, he's going to be 24 coming into this season. I think he can grow up a little bit. So, with that, it's just, again, there's other options in free agency at that position. And if you're going to pay a little bit more at any position, especially with this free agency class, I think the bigs have a higher premium, because the guards that you'd have to pay for have a lot of risks and a lot of question marks, injury history, whereas the guards in this class have a lot of upside and intrigue, don't have those injuries. And also you can come in and bring them cheaper. And so, if you walk out of a draft, and let's say the Pistons, whether they get Jaden Ivey, or even let's say they have a draft where they walk away with Keegan Murray at 5 and Bennedict Mathurin at 7. The Detroit Pistons got a lot better that day, because they can have lineups where they can throw out Saddiq Bey, Bennedict Mathurin, and Keegan Murray. And then that's just defensively. Offensively, that's just that when we talk about positionless basketball and being able to be defensively versatile, offensively versatile, to shoot the three, that makes us much more of a threat and fits our timeline in the long term. So certainly a lot of intrigue there. But also, Jeff, Shaedon Sharpe, he's a guy that when we did our mock draft was available at 7. And there are a lot of conversations and a lot of mock drafts where Shaedon Sharpe is available as far as 7. Is there a world, Jeff, where the Pistons go Keegan Murray at 5 and Shaedon Sharpe at 7? And is that your ultimate dream draft scenario?
Yes and yes. No, I'm okay. In reality, though, if I'm thinking like Troy, I don't think he will be taken. Listen, it makes more sense at 7, because if you take Jaden Ivey, I don't like it, because I see Shaedon for Shaedon to be Shaedon for me, like in what I see as potential, he's got to just walk into a spot that's ready to groom him and he can get a role right away, because he's got to play. You can't take Jaden Ivey and take Shaedon Sharpe and expect him to play 15-20 minutes a night. Like that doesn't, he's not going to.
Well, yeah. I mean, at that point, the ball truly, with those, that's just too many guys that require the ball, because because with Cade, I mean, sure, you have a selfless guy in Cade, but I mean, Shaden
There's only one
Sharp.
basketball. There's only one
Exactly,
basketball.
exactly. And also, only truly great players can have games that are that sacrificial.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of players need to be a little bit more inherently selfish, need to have the ball more, need to do more, need to take more time off the shot clock because they're not guys like Cade Cunningham who can create something on a whim for himself or everybody else on the
Oh
court.
yeah.
You
And you
know?
need wings. You need wings,
Yeah.
especially if you trade Jeremy Grant. We're assuming they do. You acquire the 7. Why would you go if you get Keegan Murray and Shaden Sharp? That makes more sense because then you have a guy that you know what you're getting, maturity. He's more of a finished product. He still has upside, and then you have the mystery, the guy that you're swinging almost like a Killian Hayes back a couple years ago when they took again going back to the Killian point. You take
Right.
Killian, but if Killian doesn't work out or becomes an okay player, you're still left with Sadiq. You
Yeah.
still left, hopefully, as Isaiah Stewart gets even better. Like, that's what you look at. So for me, Sean, I would be okay with it. But if you take Jaden Ivey, he's crossed out. Then you
Yeah.
got to go Bennedict. And maybe, I don't think this will happen, but if there's a situation where Keegan Murray falls for whatever reason and he's there at 7 and you walk away with Jaden Ivey and Keegan Murray, I think the Pistons are happy. Either way, you're going to have a great selection.
I think they're pretty freaking happy. Now, I don't see a world where the Pacers pass up on
Yeah,
Keegan
no,
Murray.
he'll probably be there.
Yeah, and in addition, I don't see them passing up on Jaden Ivey either. I think those are two guys that would fit the Pacers kind of perfectly as well. So it's not to rain on the parade. It's just being a little practical, bringing us down to earth a little bit, but certainly a scenario I would not say no to. That is for sure. I mean, there's a world where Jeremy Grant still is on this team. There's a world where we could, possibly be trading down, trading for that 14th pick instead. If that's the case, I don't know if that's a trade package or we're sending Jeremy away because I don't think that's just a lot. I don't think that's enough value. If you're giving up Jeremy Grant, I want to get something in the lottery, especially something in the top 10, especially something at 7 or 4. I think that's where you got to be looking. But that's just my opinion. Do you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, we bring up, especially on this show, like, I'm excited to see who they select, and I cannot wait because they don't really release any details. So this is why we have so many different scenarios we have to run through on From Half Court, because that's why I keep bringing up, you either have Keegan, Jaden Ivey, you have Shaden Sharp. Like, you have all these different scenarios because you never know. No one knew when at Woodward Sports, when we streamed, the draft and they took Killian at 7 and everybody was all happy. They ended the stream. They didn't know Troy would sneak back into that first round and take 2 more guys. So it's going to be exciting. I think he's going to, Troy Weaver again is going to have a great draft. There's going to be tons of talent available. It just depends on who you want to pair. And if you have 2 picks in the top 10, Sean, woo, you're walking away with 2 guys. This is why I'm still leaning Bennedict at 7, because I want guys that can play both sides of the ball. They can play defense on both sides of the court. Sorry, I'm thinking of football. Play both sides of the court. They can play defense, play offense, and they can space the floor. You get Bennedict Mathurin, you get Keegan Murray, length, shooting. You got the Boston Celtics in the East.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
Well, it makes sense why you're thinking of football though, because when you're thinking of team composition and building a team in basketball, a lot of it does line up with football. It's like you get your quarterback, you get your franchise guy in Cade Cunningham. That's your franchise QB, right? Then you have your guy that's like your dynamic wide receiver. That's Sadiq Bey. We have Killian Hayes, who's like our promising corner or our linebacker that we're kind of not sure if he's going to work out or not. And then now we need to go get our pass rusher and a guy like DeAndre Ayton or someone that can go and protect the paint or get to the quarterback in that sense, So it's like it's very similar in the way that when you're building a championship team, you have to build it right and they all have to fill their roles and have the right pieces. And oftentimes, I think it's stars that get you to the finals. And then from there, it's role players that win you championships because it's guys like JJ Barea that make the hustle plays, that make the ultimate difference. It's guys like Al Horford for
Derek
the
White.
Celtics. Yeah, Derek White
too.
Exactly.
Woo!
Exactly. There's Danny Green. Back when he was on the Spurs and on the Lakers and all the other places, Toronto, he was huge for the Kawhi team. He was coveted after that year. So, it's
Ray
one of
Allen
those,
hit that shot too. Don't forget about Ray Allen for the Miami Heat too.
Yeah, exactly. So
but still, your point still stands.
Yeah, exactly. So it might seem trivial in the long run to talk about should we get into this draft? Should we get these types of players because they might not be stars. However, these are the types of guys when when in the long term, you're looking at deep playoff runs, guys like Bennedict Mathurin or Jalen Duren could be making the defensive stop either for your team or against your team. And that could be the difference.
Yeah,
So,
you need talent, and we talked about this last episode or last video as well. Like when we have to get guys, especially when Cade, there's going to be a point in time where Cade's either in foul trouble or he's hurt. I'm sorry, that's the NBA. He's bound to get hurt at some point. That's just a couple games a season. Hopefully he's not out for too long. You need guys that can step up. And if you're the two guys they're going to select this year, or one at the very minimum, maybe they keep Jeremy. I don't. Who knows what they're going to do. That's who you need to think of as well. Like who can the Jalen Brown, we talked about this, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum. When Jason's off the floor or Jalen's off the floor, you know you have a guy. So they're going to get somebody. It's just about whether who.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, whether in the Pistons have a lot of different options. They can really go young. They can get some veterans that can bring a lot of leadership presence. There's a lot of different things the Pistons can do. And the thing that we know is that Troy Weaver is going to be aggressive in every single facet, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft. So that's why we have to talk through all these scenarios, because there's truly few other general managers in the NBA like Troy Weaver, because few general managers are going to look at trading up and doing those types of moves quite like him. So that's why we have to talk about it as much as we do. But with that, what do you think? Let us know in the comment section down below. But also, be sure to be following my guy Jeff on Twitter at Jeff I Afraidy. Also myself at Sean Halfcourt, and even the channel as well. We're on Twitter too, so be sure you're there. There's a lot of content and good stuff that's dropped there. Also, become a member from Half Court, because pretty soon we're going to be playing 2K on stream, Jeff. I think you and I are going to have to do you versus me for the first stream. I think I'm going to have to.
God.
I think I'm going to have to wreck your live, baby.
Listen, I'm making my excuse early. I don't play online, so
okay.
I'm blaming lag. I'm blaming lag.
Dude,
lag.
I don't play online either. So there goes your excuse.
Lag.
But shout out to our members like Dominique Davis, Wade Ballou, Justin Jones, our faithful From Half Court Army. You can join as well by clicking join right down below. Be sure to click that at the low price of how much, Jeff? $4.99.
Yeah, you get I can't do the $9
a month. It's $5. It's $5. What the? Who cares? Who gives a rat mother? Anyway, thank y'all so much for
like the video too. Don't forget to like the video.
Subscribe to the channel, and join the From Half Court Army. We will catch you next time right here at From Half Court. Catch y'all later.